There is a truth that can transform the way you live, breathe, and walk in this world. The Holy Spirit is not a distant helper or a vague spiritual force. He is your constant companion, counselor, and guide. The one who formed the heavens now chooses to dwell in you, not merely to comfort, but to empower, to lead, and to release the purposes of God through your life. When you wake in the morning, you are not waking alone. The one who knows every step you will take is already speaking, already aligning your path with the Father's will. But here's the key: you must listen. The Spirit often speaks in the still, quiet moments, in the gentle impressions that stir your heart. If your life is filled only with noise, you will miss the whisper that carries heaven's strategy. We often look at our weaknesses and feel disqualified, but the Holy Spirit specializes in taking what seems inadequate and turning it into a vessel of glory. Your weakness is not a barrier to His power. It is the very place His strength is revealed. He delights in working through those who know they cannot accomplish the impossible on their own. The Holy Spirit also teaches you to see with new eyes. The problems you face are no longer just obstacles. They are opportunities for God's nature to be displayed through you. That broken relationship becomes a canvas for His reconciliation. That impossible need becomes a stage for His provision. That inner struggle becomes the training ground for His victory. But relationship with the Spirit is not passive. He invites you into a life of risk, the kind of risk where obedience outweighs comfort, where faith moves you to pray when logic says it's pointless, where you speak life when the world expects silence. Every step you take with Him builds a history between you and God, and that history becomes a testimony for others to follow. Today you have the opportunity to walk in step with the Spirit of the living God. He is not waiting for you to be perfect before He moves. He is waiting for you to say yes. Yes to His leading, yes to His correction, yes to His empowerment. And when you do, your life will not simply be about surviving. It will become a channel through which heaven touches earth. So, lean in, listen closely, yield fully. The same Spirit who raised Jesus from the dead is in you, and with Him nothing is impossible. The Holy Spirit is not just a divine influence that occasionally touches our lives. He is the living presence of God within us, and recognizing this truth is the beginning of living in the fullness of what God has intended for His people. Too often, people limit their understanding of the Holy Spirit to moments of inspiration during worship, a sudden surge of courage in prayer, or a brief sense of peace in a hard time. While those are beautiful and real manifestations of His work, they are not the entirety of His role. The Holy Spirit is not a visitor who stops by for a short while and then leaves. He is a resident, permanently dwelling in the heart of every believer, ready to guide, comfort, correct, and empower. Understanding His role changes the way we live because it shifts our focus from living by our own wisdom and strength to living from heaven's perspective here on earth. This change is not just about having better morals or stronger willpower. It's about a completely different source of life flowing through us. When you begin to truly grasp that the Holy Spirit is the very presence of God within you, it changes how you see yourself. You are no longer just a human trying to survive in a broken world. You are a carrier of divine presence. The same Spirit who was present at creation, who hovered over the waters before the world began, now resides in you to bring order, beauty, and life wherever you go. That reality should give you courage when you face challenges, because you realize that you never face them alone. Every problem you encounter is not just met with your limited ability, but with God's limitless power and wisdom. The Holy Spirit brings a heavenly perspective that sees beyond the surface. While we may see chaos, He sees opportunity for God's glory. While we may see lack, He sees the beginning of supernatural provision. This partnership with the Holy Spirit empowers us to go beyond human limitations. Left to ourselves, we can only do what our natural abilities allow, but when the Holy Spirit works through us, the impossible becomes possible. We begin to see prayers answered in ways we could never have orchestrated. We see hearts changed that we could never have convinced. We see situations shift in ways no human strategy could achieve. This is why it's essential to move from merely believing in the Holy Spirit to actively relying on Him. It is not enough to acknowledge His existence. We must invite Him into every area of life. That includes the big decisions we make and the small, seemingly insignificant moments of our day. He is not only interested in the grand calling you carry, but also in how you speak to your neighbor, how you respond to an offense, and how you steward the opportunities in front of you. Living from heaven's perspective also means aligning our priorities with His. The Holy Spirit is constantly working to shape us into the image of Christ, which often means challenging our comfort zones. He might lead you to step into situations that stretch your faith, to speak when you feel nervous, or to remain silent when you want to defend yourself. In all these moments, He is training you to depend on His wisdom and power rather than your own. This process can be uncomfortable because it requires surrender, but that surrender is where true strength is found. The more we yield to Him, the more His nature is revealed in us, and the more heaven's realities become visible on earth through our lives. Another transformative truth is that the Holy Spirit is not a force that controls us like a puppet master. He is a person, and like any relationship, this partnership grows through communication and trust. He speaks, we listen. He leads, we follow. Sometimes His leading is gentle, like a quiet thought that rises in your spirit, and other times it's urgent, like a strong conviction that will not leave you until you obey. Learning to discern His voice takes time and intentionality, but the more you respond, the more clearly you recognize when He's speaking. Over time, His guidance becomes a natural part of your life, like the way you instinctively breathe without thinking. This relationship also deepens through obedience. Each time we say yes to the Holy Spirit, no matter how small the instruction, we make space for Him to work more powerfully in and through us. Every act of obedience is like planting a seed, and over time, those seeds grow into a testimony of God's faithfulness that others can see and be inspired by. On the other hand, when we resist His leading, we miss opportunities for His glory to be revealed. That's why sensitivity to His voice is so crucial. It's not about following a list of religious rules. It's about staying in step with the one who knows the end from the beginning and who always leads us in truth. Ultimately, understanding the Holy Spirit's role is not a matter of gaining more information, but of entering into a deeper relationship. Knowledge without intimacy leads to religion without power. But when knowledge is paired with relationship, it becomes the foundation for a life that truly reflects heaven's culture here on earth. The Holy Spirit wants to be involved in every detail of your journey, from the decisions you make to the dreams you pursue, from the trials you face to the victories you celebrate. He is not limited by your weaknesses, you are past, or your present circumstances. In fact, He often chooses the most unlikely vessels to demonstrate the greatness of God's power. So to live fully in the reality of His presence, you must first recognize who He is and what He's here to do. He is not just here to comfort you when you're hurting. He's here to transform you into a carrier of God's kingdom. He is not just here to give you good feelings during worship. He's here to equip you for a life of impact and purpose. Once this truth takes root in your heart, everything changes. Your prayers become bolder because you know who's backing you. Your perspective shifts because you see from heaven's vantage point. Your confidence grows because you realize you're not limited to your own strength. Living with this awareness is the first step toward a life that is not only successful in human terms, but significant in eternal terms. And once you take that step, you begin to see that the Christian life was never meant to be ordinary. It was designed to be a supernatural partnership between you and the living God who chooses to make his home within you. Partnering with the Holy Spirit is not just about a moment of spiritual excitement or a single powerful encounter. It is a lifelong relationship that grows and deepens as we walk with him daily. This relationship is intentional because, like any relationship, it requires time, attention, and a willingness to trust. The Holy Spirit is the one who knows the Father's heart perfectly, and when we allow him to lead us, we find ourselves moving in alignment with God's purposes. He doesn't force himself on us, he invites us. The invitation is always there, but it is up to us to respond. To partner with him means to lean in, to listen carefully, and to follow even when it challenges our comfort or logic. It means believing that his guidance will always lead us into life, even if it takes us through unfamiliar territory. Partnership requires sensitivity, and sensitivity comes from proximity. You cannot recognize someone's voice unless you spend time with them, and the same humility and strength. We begin to reflect the nature of Christ more clearly. This inner transformation is what makes our outward ministry effective, because the world doesn't just need our words, it needs to see God's life in us. Another key aspect of this partnership is that it's not only for our benefit. The Holy Spirit equips us so we can be a blessing to others. He gives spiritual gifts like wisdom, healing, prophecy, and discernment, not to elevate us, but to serve the people around us. When we partner with him, our life becomes a conduit for his power and love to flow into situations where they are desperately needed. This means that even ordinary moments can carry extraordinary impact. A conversation at work, a word of encouragement to a friend, or a prayer offered in faith can become the very thing God uses to change someone's life. Yielding to the Holy Spirit's leadership also means we learn to lay down our own agenda when his plan takes a different shape. Sometimes we have a clear idea of what we want to do for God, but he redirects us to something that looks smaller or less significant. In those moments, humility keeps the partnership strong. It's not about our recognition, it's about his will being done. Often, those seemingly small assignments carry eternal weight that we only understand later. This partnership will also be tested in seasons of waiting or silence. There will be times when you feel like you can't hear him as clearly as before, or when circumstances seem to contradict what he has promised. These are moments to lean in even more, trusting that he has not left you and that he is still working behind the scenes. Waiting is not wasted when it's done in faith, because the Holy Spirit uses these seasons to deepen our roots and strengthen our resolve. Ultimately, partnering with the Holy Spirit is about surrender. Daily, moment by moment, it is choosy to let him shape your decisions, influence your words, and guide your actions. It's saying, I trust you more than I trust myself. And as you live this way, you'll discover that your life begins to carry the fragrance of heaven into every environment you enter. People will encounter peace where there was chaos, hope where there was despair, and love where there was division, not because of your abilities, but because you are walking in step with the Spirit of God. This is the power of partnership. It turns ordinary people into vessels of extraordinary grace, and it reveals God's heart to a world that desperately needs him. When you learn to yield your thoughts, words, and actions to the Holy Spirit, you enter into a flow of life that is not possible by human effort alone. Yielding is not weakness. It is the intentional choice to place your will under the leadership of the one who knows all things and works all things for the glory of God. This surrender allows him to align you with heaven's purposes in ways you could never orchestrate on your own. It's like handing over the steering wheel to the one who not only knows the road ahead, but also knows how to navigate every twist, turn, and obstacle. The beautiful thing is that when you yield, you don't lose control of your life. You gain access to divine wisdom, strength, and timing that surpass your own understanding. Yielding begins in the mind. The way you think determines the way you live, and the Holy Spirit often starts by reshaping your thought patterns. He teaches you to see situations not through fear or frustration, but through faith. When your natural reaction might be to worry, He reminds you of God's promises. When you feel powerless, He brings to mind testimonies of God's past faithfulness. This renewing of the mind is a daily process, and it requires that you stay aware of what thoughts you are allowing to take root. Yielding means inviting Him into your thought life and giving Him permission to challenge anything that doesn't align with truth. From your thoughts, yielding moves into your words. Words carry power. They can build or destroy, bless or curse, inspire or discourage. The Holy Spirit often prompts us to speak words of life in moments when silence might feel easier, or to remain silent when speaking might cause harm. Yielding your speech to Him might mean pausing before you answer, praying before you confront, or speaking encouragement when someone is at their lowest. Over time, as you obey these gentle promptings, your words begin to reflect the nature of God's heart, bringing hope, healing, and direction to those who hear you. Your actions are the outward evidence of your partnership with the Holy Spirit. When you allow Him to lead, your life starts to take on a supernatural rhythm. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, and walking through doors you could not have opened yourself. Sometimes His leading will direct you into opportunities that look risky or uncomfortable. He may ask you to step out in faith when you feel unprepared, or to serve in ways that stretch you beyond your natural abilities. These moments are not accidents, they are divine appointments. Yielding in action means saying yes, even when the full picture is unclear, trusting that obedience will always lead you into God's best. As you live in this yielded posture, you will notice that your decisions begin to carry eternal weight. The Holy Spirit is always working with eternity in mind, even in the smallest choices. What may seem like an ordinary decision, a conversation, a gesture of kindness, a moment of generosity, can become a seed that grows into something far greater than you can imagine. By yielding to His leading, you become part of a chain of divine events that can touch lives in ways you will not always see immediately. Yielding also means trusting Him in correction. There will be time is when the Holy Spirit points out areas in your life that need to change, attitudes that don't reflect Christ, habits that drain your spiritual strength, or relationships that are pulling you away from God's purposes. In those moments, you can choose to resist or to surrender. The ones who grow the most in their walk with God are those who allow His correction to shape them. His discipline is never to shame you, but to align you with the greater destiny He has for you. Another aspect of yielding is learning to release control over the timing of your life. We often want answers, breakthroughs, and results instantly, but the Holy Spirit works according to God's perfect timing. Yielding means being willing to move when He says move, and to wait when He says wait. It's in the waiting seasons that He often does the deepest work in our hearts, preparing us for the next assignment. Trusting His timing can be one of the hardest parts of surrender, but it is also one of the most rewarding, because when His timing arrives, everything falls into place in ways we could never arrange ourselves. As you grow in this lifestyle of yielding, you will discover that it is not about losing your personality or your uniqueness. The Holy Spirit does not erase who you are. He refines you so that the best version of who God created you to be can shine. Your gifts, talents, and passions become instruments in His hands, used for purposes far beyond what you could achieve on your own. This is why a yielded life is so powerful. It is God's power expressed through a willing vessel, and it becomes a testimony that inspires others to do the same. The more you yield, the more you will notice His presence in your everyday life. You will start to see His fingerprints in the details, His hand guiding you in decisions, His peace anchoring you in challenges, and His joy filling you in the mundane. The Christian life is not meant to be lived in your own strength. It is meant to be lived in partnership with the Spirit of God. Yielding is the bridge between your limited capacity and His unlimited ability. Ultimately, yielding your thoughts, words, and actions to the Holy Spirit is about trust. It is believing that His way is better than yours, that His perspective is higher, and that His love for you is greater than anything you can imagine. It is about letting Him write the story of your life, knowing that He will make it far more beautiful, purposeful, and impactful than you ever could on your own. And when you live this way, your life will not just reflect God's will, it will become a living example of His power and goodness